He wasn't supposed to talk, not in front of cameras, not in front of a jury, and definitely not in front of the world. But when Cornelius Smith opened his mouth, Memphis shook. Because what he said in that courtroom didn't just break the street code, it burned it to the ground. He didn't just admit to pulling the trigger that ended young Dolph's life. He pointed fingers, big ones, at Big Juke, at Yo Gotti, at the entire CMG empire. And if what he said is true, then young Dolph's death wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a calculated hit, planned like a corporate takeover, executed like a war. This isn't just about beef. This is about betrayal, money, power, and a legacy that some wanted wiped off the map. Because the truth? It was never supposed to make it to court, but it did. And now the empire might crumble. November 17th, 22-1. It was supposed to be a regular day in South Memphis. But by 1 p.m., sirens were screaming, yellow tape was going up, and hip-hop had just lost a king. Young Dolph, real name Adolph Thornton, Jr., was gunned down inside Makeda's homemade butter cookies, a local shop he had supported for years. It wasn't just a murder. It was an ambush. 22 bullets tore through his body, head, neck, back, and arms, leaving no chance for survival. The footage that surfaced showed shattered glass, a luxury car parked outside, and panic erupting across the street. And inside that bakery, a legend laid still. News spread faster than any track ever could. From Memphis blocks to international blogs, everyone asked the same thing. Who would dare? And why? But the answers didn't come right away. The streets went silent. No one snitched. No one moved Dot to the outside world. It looked like another rapper lost to violence. But inside Memphis, everybody knew this wasn't random. This was a message. And those who understood the code knew exactly who that message was for. But what they didn't know was that one day the silence would break, and it would start in a courtroom with one man, Cornelius Smith, and he was ready to tell everything. But that wasn't the whole story, because once he started talking, it didn't stop. The courtroom was ice cold, not because of the temperature, but because the man sitting in that witness chair, Cornelius Smith, had death in his eyes. Not rage, not remorse, just silence. Until the footage rolled, surveillance from Makeda's cookies played frame by frame. Two men, masks on, weapons drawn, and one of them, caught clear as day, stepped out with a Draco in hand. The prosecutor didn't need to build suspense. They paused the video and turned to Smith. Is that you? Smith didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't blink. Yeah, that's me. The courtroom gasped. Years of speculation, whispers, and conspiracy confirmed in 5 words. But he wasn't done. When asked which gun he used, Smith admitted it straight. I had the little Draco, a semi-automatic weapon, military-grade destruction in a compact package. Then came the question that told the world everything it needed to know. Why did you do it? Smith's answer was colder than anything the prosecution could have written. I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I was just trying to get some money. Just money. Not beef, not revenge, not even fear. According to Smith, he was offered $40,000 to do the job. A hit on one of the most respected independent artists in the South. But here's where the story flipped from tragic to terrifying. Because Cornelius Smith wasn't just confessing to a murder. He was about to expose the entire chain of command. He pointed straight to Anthony Big Juke Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother, as the man who allegedly gave the order. And worse, he claimed the hit was blessed from the top. From Yo Gotti himself. In that moment, Memphis wasn't just watching a trial. It was watching the possible unraveling of an empire. And what came next would pull back the curtain on nearly a decade of street politics, music beef, and blood money. Because this beef didn't start with a bullet. It started with a deal, and a rejection that changed everything. To understand why young Dolph was targeted, you have to rewind the clock. Back to 2014. Dolph had just dropped High Class Street Music 4, American Gangster, a mixtape that had Memphis buzzing and the streets on lock. That same year, Yo Gotti, already a household name in Southern hip-hop, allegedly tried to sign Dolph to his label, Collective Music Group, CMG. It was a big offer, but Dolph said no. He wasn't trying to ride another man's wave. He was building his own empire, Paper Route Empire, independent, unapologetic, unfiltered. At the time, it looked like just another artist making a business move. But in Memphis, that move sparked something darker. According to rumors and later courtroom claims, Gotti took Dolph's rejection personally. Very personally. Dolph didn't just walk away. He walked away loud. He went to social media, tweeting, "In 2016, you went from being my #1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater." Lines were drawn. And when Dolph dropped an album titled King of Memphis, it felt like war had officially been declared. Why? Because Gotti had long claimed that title for himself. What followed was a series of escalating shots, some lyrical, some literal. In 2016, Gotti's CMG artist Black Youngsta went on Instagram threatening to slap Dolph. Then he pulled up in Dolph's hood strapped up. By early 2017, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was riddled with over 100 rounds in Charlotte. Somehow, he walked away. Then he performed that same night. Later that year, he wasn't so lucky. Dolph was shot outside a shoe store in Hollywood. He survived again, but barely. The beef wasn't just music. It was pride. It was territory. It was who really ran Memphis. And while Gotti never publicly claimed responsibility for the shootings and was cleared as a person of interest in at least one, the streets had already made up their mind. This wasn't rap beef anymore. This was a war. And by 2021, that war had become deadly serious. But behind the scenes, it wasn't just about lyrics or social media clout. It was about money, legacy, and eliminating the competition. And someone, allegedly, wanted to make sure Dolph's empire didn't just crumble. They wanted to erase it completely. And that's when Big Juke entered the picture, with a bounty and a plan. If Cornelius Smith's confession was the spark, then the name he dropped next was the explosion. Anthony Big Juke Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother, CMG's silent enforcer. The man who, according to Smith's sworn testimony, put a 6-figure price on young Dolph's head. $100,000. That's what the streets say it costs to silence Memphis's most defiant voice. This wasn't speculation anymore. This was sworn testimony. Smith claimed that Big Juke orchestrated the entire setup, pulling strings behind the curtain like a mob boss operating under the guise of a record label. And the meetings? They weren't just Memphis block talk. They happened in Atlanta multiple times. According to Smith, it was in those out-of-town meets that the plan was cemented. Who would do it? When it would happen? How much they'd get paid? And most chilling of all, how this was going to be more than just a hit on Dolph. This was the start of a purge, a takedown of the entire Paper Route empire. But while Smith sat in that courtroom pointing fingers, Big Juke wasn't there to defend himself. Because on January 13th, 2024, Anthony Big Juke Mims was gunned down outside Perinian's restaurant in Memphis, just minutes after leaving a funeral repast. Some said it was karma. Some said it was revenge. Others whispered something more sinister, that he was silenced. Before he could be forced to talk, the Memphis police never made an arrest. No suspects. No official leads, just a body on the pavement. And a silence. That said more than any press conference ever could. But Smith's testimony made one thing painfully clear. Big Juke was allegedly the bridge between the shooters and the label. He wasn't just Gotti's brother. He was the middleman, the alleged broker of a murder contract that, according to prosecutors, ran like a business deal. He didn't pull the trigger. He allegedly picked the men who would. And the empire? He allegedly did it all in the name of CMG. But Juke's story ended in blood before he could speak, before he could testify, before the full truth could ever be known. And the man said to be pulling the strings alongside him was still alive, still breathing, and soon would be on trial. His name? Hernandez Govan? And the streets say he was the mastermind. Behind every hit, there's a mind that orchestrates the chaos. According to Cornelius Smith and the prosecutors who believe him, that mind was Hernandez Govan, not a rapper, not a street soldier, but the alleged puppet master pulling strings across two worlds, the streets and the studio. Smith's testimony painted Govan as the man who designed the plot, coordinated the players, and calculated every move, from the stolen getaway car to the promises of fame and fortune. He wasn't just part of it. He was allegedly at the top of it. According to Smith, Govan sat down with him and Justin Straight Drop Johnson in Atlanta, treating the murder plan like a record label negotiation. Who would do the job, what they'd get paid, and what it could mean for their careers, the alleged deal. Smith and Johnson would each get $40,000 for the hit. Govan? $20,000, just for setting it all up. But money wasn't the only thing on the table. Smith testified that Johnson's reward wasn't just cash, it was clout. The chance to sign with CMG, not through talent, not through hustle, but through murder. Let that sink in. According to prosecutors, Govan allegedly positioned Dolph's death as a career opportunity, a twisted audition for a shot at the spotlight. The message was clear: take out Dolph and you're in. And for Johnson, who had long been chasing rap fame in the shadows of bigger Memphis artists, it was the ultimate shortcut. Instead of rising through the ranks, he allegedly tried to eliminate the competition. That theory gained traction when, just 5 days after Dolph's death, Johnson released a music video called Stepped On. In it, he rocked a chain that repped PRE, Paper Route Empire's own initials, as if mocking the man he was accused of murdering. But Govan, according to Smith, was the one who made the plan run like clockwork. He allegedly knew how to blend into both sides, the business meetings in Atlanta, the hood talks back in Memphis. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but prosecutors said he was dangerous because he knew how to move in silence. His arrest in November 2022 sent shockwaves through Memphis. Because if Govan was the brains, then what they were dealing with wasn't a street beef. It was organized conspiracy, a calculated hit, with targets, with payouts, with a purpose. And as his trial looms, set for July 28, 2025, the streets want answers. Was he really the one who ordered it all? Did the plan go deeper than even Cornelius Smith revealed? And if he was working with Big Juke, who else knew? Because if Govan goes down, he might not fall alone. You've heard of Trigger. Men, you've heard of bounties. But what Cornelius Smith said next blew the case wide open. He named the man who, according to prosecutors, wasn't just part of the plan. He created it, Hernandez Govan, a name that hadn't made headlines until now. But in court, it hit. Like a bomb, Govan wasn't a rapper. He wasn't some street hothead posting threats on Instagram. He was quiet, calculated, and allegedly the true architect of young Dolph's assassination. According to Smith's sworn testimony, Govan sat down with him and Justin Straight Drop Johnson and laid out the plan like a business transaction. This wasn't a last-minute drive-by. This was a premeditated hit with assigned roles, dollar amounts, and goals. Smith claimed the financial breakdown was clear. $40,000 each for the shooters, him and Johnson. $20,000 for Govan as the alleged facilitator, but the money was just the surface. According to what came out in court, this hit was also a gateway. Smith said Govan promised that killing young Dolph would earn Johnson a record deal with CMG, Gotti's label. Let that sit for a second. In a world where young artists grind for years just to get noticed, Govan allegedly offered Johnson a shortcut: end a man's life and start your music career. That chilling theory gained even more weight after the murder. Just days after Dolph's death, Johnson released a video for a song called Stepped On. He wore a PRE chain in the video, the same label Dolph built from the ground up. Then another track dropped. Trackhawk. Lyrics included, spot something moving. Then I'm firing. 50 shots in 20 seconds. This wasn't subliminal. This was brazen. And behind it all, Smith claimed, was Hernandez Govan, a man who allegedly straddled two worlds, the trap and the label, the bullets and the business. He understood both, and that, prosecutors argued, made him the most dangerous piece on the board. When Govan was arrested in November 2022, the feds didn't just see a suspect, they saw a mastermind. The one who, alongside Big Juke, allegedly, connected the shooters, crafted the plan, and ensured the empire stayed protected. And now, Govan's trial is set for July 28, 2025. And if what Smith says is proven true in court, it won't just be a conviction. It'll be the first domino in the collapse of a rap dynasty built on silence, power, and blood. But there's one more twist. Because when bullets flew that day in Makeda's, it wasn't just Dolph who got hit. The shooters got hit too. And what happened next proved just how real it all was. The plan was supposed to be quick. In and out. 2 shooters. 1 target. No mistakes. But that's not what happened inside Makeda's homemade butter cookies that day. According to Cornelius Smith's testimony, everything changed the moment the first shots rang out. Smith stepped out first, little Draco in hand. He saw Dolph standing by the window. Didn't wait. Just started firing through the glass. I saw him. I got out, and I just started shooting. Justin Johnson, a.k.a. Trey Drop, followed close behind, armed with a handgun. Together, they unleashed a barrage of bullets into the small bakery, sending Dolph to the floor and shocking the city of Memphis. But what Smith said next caught everyone off guard. They didn't get away clean. Dolph's brother Marcus was inside the shop too, and he fired back. Bullets flew both ways. And the shooters? They got hit. Smith recounted how it all went sideways during their escape. They jumped into a stolen white Mercedes-Benz, thinking it was over. But then, I told Jeff, I'm hit. Blood. Bullet hole through the side window. 1 in his sweater. 1 in his leg. Johnson wasn't untouched either. He said, I'm hit too. Now 2 injured men bleeding out. A getaway car were flying down Memphis streets, not just trying to escape the police, but trying to survive. Smith testified that even as they fled, he was checking on Johnson, making sure we don't wreck, making sure he's straight. That detail mattered, because prosecutors needed more than just words, and they had it. Surveillance footage showed the shooters. Phone records placed Johnson's cell near the bakery at the exact time of the murder. Smith's fingerprints were found in the getaway car. The white Mercedes had been stolen days before, a strategic move to keep the operation untraceable. This wasn't a sloppy hit. It was calculated, planned, and executed with military-style coordination. But even the best-laid plans can't account for return fire. Smith's injuries, Johnson's wounds, they weren't just evidence. They were proof. Proof that this was a shootout. Proof that Marcus fought back. And proof that this wasn't just an attack. It was a war. But even as they bled, even as the car sped through Memphis, they didn't stop because they knew there was more to do. More people to silence. Because according to what Smith was about to reveal next, young Dolph wasn't the only target. You'd think after a hit like that, after gunning down one of the most respected artists in the South, a man would disappear, lay low, stay silent. But not just in straight drop. Johnson, what he did next wasn't just reckless. It was pure arrogance. 5 days after young Dolph's murder, Johnson dropped a music video titled Stepped On. Not only did he rap like nothing had happened, he wore a chain with the letters P-R-E, Paper Route Empire, the very label Dolph built from scratch. The very legacy he allegedly tried to destroy. It wasn't subliminal. It was a message. One that prosecutors would later argue was a flex, a victory lap, an attempt to stake his claim on Memphis soil soaked in blood. But it didn't stop there. As law enforcement hunted him down, Johnson acted like a man who had already won. On January 10, 2022, while still a fugitive, he dropped another track called Trackhawk. And the lyrics? Spot something moving, and I'm firing. 50 shots in 20 seconds. This wasn't just rap. This sounded like a confession set. To a beat. Then came the social media stunts. An Instagram post linked to Johnson read, "Turning myself in Monday at 201 Poplar. I'm innocent, and I'll be back sooner than you can blink." That address? It's the Shelby County Jail. He wasn't hiding. He was taunting. As if this was all just part of his brand rollout, but the evidence was stacked too high. Video footage, cell tower pings, fingerprints, and now, Cornelius Smith's courtroom testimony, the street persona. Cracked, the mask fell. And on September 26, 2024, the judge made it official. Life in prison. Plus an extra 50 years, for good measure. The courtroom was tense. Some saw justice. Others saw the beginning of a bigger unraveling. Because straight drop might have gone down, but the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because while Johnson sat in prison, the streets had already started moving. Fast. And the people who celebrated Dolph's death started dying. You can call it karma. You can call it revenge. But after young Dolph was murdered, one thing became crystal clear. Paper Route Empire wasn't waiting for the courts. The streets moved first. The first warning came within hours of Dolph's death, a surge in gun violence across Memphis. More than a dozen people shot. At least 3 confirmed dead. And that was just the beginning. Over the next 3 years, bodies started dropping. And the names? All connected, directly or indirectly, to the conspiracy that ended young Dolph's life. Anthony Big Juke Mims, the man Cornelius Smith claimed put the $100,000 bounty on Dolph's head, was gunned down January 13th, 2024, outside Perignon's restaurant. It was supposed to be a peaceful day, a repast following a funeral. But someone had other plans. Some said it was retaliation. Others said it was silence. Either way, Big Juke was gone. But rewind a bit. Before Big Juke, there was Darien Demon Childs, a Memphis comedian who made jokes about Dolph's death online. He didn't last long. Shot dead. Then came Big Nutzi, a man with alleged ties to straight drop, taken out in January 22. Next, Joshua C.E.O. Taylor, another alleged affiliate linked to the broader conspiracy, found dead from gunshot wounds. The message was loud, unmistakable. If you celebrated Dolph's death, mocked it, or helped make it happen, you were next. And if there was any doubt, Big Juke erased it himself with his own words. Just weeks after Dolph's death, he went live on social media, joking about rappers being broke and out of work now that Dolph was gone. "I'ma pay y'all car notes, jewelry notes, rent, since y'all can't do no shows." The timing, sickening. The tone, mocking. And for many, that live stream sealed his fate, because while he laughed, Dolph's people were listening. And they weren't in the mood for jokes. But the retaliation wasn't just about settling scores. It was about preserving legacy. Dolph wasn't just a rapper. He was a leader. He turned Paper Route Empire into a symbol of independence, a family, a movement. And when that family got hit, they hit back. But behind the gun smoke and street justice, something else was happening. Something quieter, but just as devastating. Key Glock, Dolph's cousin, was now standing alone. No mentor, no shield, no warning dot, just the weight of a kingdom. And a wound that wouldn't heal. He didn't cry on camera. He didn't rant on Instagram. He didn't call for war. Key Glock just shut down. In the weeks following young Dolph's murder, his cousin and closest collaborator vanished from the spotlight. No press, no music, no movement. But when he finally spoke, it wasn't through diss tracks or threats. It was through pain. In an emotional interview, the host asked him how he was doing. Glock didn't sugarcoat it. "I'm content. I'm not getting better. I'm not getting worse. I'm just here." That wasn't strength. That was survival. Because to Glock, this wasn't just a mentor or a boss. This was family, blood. The man who raised him in the game, taught him how to move, how to lead. And suddenly, Dolph was gone. Glock recalled the moment he found out. He was home, lying down, and then someone in the house called his name. And he just knew. Before the words, before the news. He knew, and nothing's been the same since. But what Glock didn't say, and didn't have to, was just how dangerous his position had become. Cornelius Smith's testimony confirmed what many had feared. There was a $50,000 bounty on Key Glock's head. The alleged plan? Take out Dolph, then come for everyone else affiliated with Paper Route Empire. That included Glock, the heir to the throne, the heart of the movement. And if Smith was telling the truth, Glock wasn't just grieving. He was hunted. But instead of folding, he got focused. He returned to the studio, dropped new music, and stepped into Dolph's shoes, not by replacing him, but by protecting what he built. Still, the weight showed. The man who used to rap with a grin in gold on his neck now rapped like he was carrying a coffin on his back. He never publicly confirmed retaliation, never admitted to being part of any street justice. But his silence spoke volumes, because the pain, you could hear it in every bar, every interview, every pause before he spoke. And while the legal battles continued in court, Glock fought his own battle every single day, not just to stay alive, but to keep Dolph's name from being erased. Because now, he wasn't just an artist. He was a soldier in a war that hadn't ended, a legacy bearer, and the last man standing between Paper Route Empire and total destruction. When young Dolph took his last breath inside that cookie shop, it didn't just end a life. It ripped open dozens of others. Families shattered, dreams buried, legacies left bleeding in the street. The courtroom became a revolving door of grief. And not just for Dolph. Justin Johnson, sentenced to life plus 50 years, now watches the world from behind bars. But he wasn't alone in that. Cell, not spiritually. Because when the law came down, it came hard. His half-brother Jarkus Johnson was pulled into the storm too. Not for pulling the trigger, but for helping Justin escape, hide, and dodge the police after Dolph's murder. He pled guilty to accessory charges, showing just how far the conspiracy stretched, even into bloodlines. And then there's Cornelius Smith, the man who broke the code and blew the case wide open. He's still waiting for his own day in court, November 15th, 2025. His fate? Unsealed. But his testimony already turned the hip-hop world upside down. And Hernandez Govan, the alleged mastermind, he's next. His trial is set for July 28th, 2025. And what's revealed there may answer questions that still haunt this case, or open doors to even darker secrets. But for one person, justice has always felt incomplete. Mia J., Dolph's longtime partner, and the mother of his children, has spoken out, not for headlines, not for clout, but out of sheer frustration. She says she was left in the dark, that court updates came from media, not officials, that despite losing the father of her children, she was made to feel like a stranger in the process. And she's not wrong. The system moved slow. The pain moved fast. And for Dolph's family, the real family, closure has never come. Because how do you find peace when your world watches the man you loved get hunted like prey and memorialized like content? As for the streets, they never waited for verdicts. The moment that bakery floor turned red, Memphis turned black with grief and fire. And 3 years later, that fire still burns. Because this wasn't just a murder. It was a message. To independent artists, to street entrepreneurs, to anyone who dared rise without permission. But the bloodshed didn't just stop careers. It shattered lives. Young Dolph was more than a rapper. He was a father, a partner, a visionary. He taught his city that you could win without selling your soul. And that's exactly why some people, allegedly, couldn't let him live. With 2 trials still pending and bodies still dropping, one question remains. Will justice ever truly be served? Or is the real justice the fact that, even in death, Dolph still refuses to be silenced?